The transport shuttle's engines hummed with barely contained energy as it approached the massive orbital station floating above Kepler 442b. Through the reinforced viewport, 17-year-old Marcus Chun pressed his face against the cool metal, watching the sprawling complex grow larger with each passing second. The Galactic Athletic Federation's primary testing facility looked like a small moon, its countless docking bays and training chambers gleaming under the system's twin suns. "First time seeing the GAF station?" asked the shuttle pilot, a tall Zenthri with scales that shifted from blue to purple when he moved. His four arms worked the controls with fluid precision while his massive head turned toward Marcus. "Most species find it overwhelming." Marcus pulled back from the window, adjusting his simple Earth-made jacket. The fabric looked cheap and worn compared to the high-tech athletic gear worn by other passengers. 3 Vorkian athletes sat nearby, their massive frames barely fitting in the reinforced seats. Each stood nearly 8 feet tall, with muscle density that made human bodybuilders look like children. Their conversation carried easily across the passenger compartment. "Another human thinks he can compete," one Vorkian rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. "They never learn. Weak bones, pathetic muscle fibers, no natural armor plating. It's almost cruel to let them try." His companion laughed, a sound like boulders tumbling down a mountainside. "Remember that human female who attempted the strength trials last cycle? She couldn't even lift the warm-up weights. The medics had to carry her out on a stretcher." The third Vorkian glanced toward Marcus with eyes like glowing embers. "This one looks even weaker than usual, barely past adolescence by their standards. What event could he possibly be attempting?" Marcus kept his expression neutral, but his fingers tightened around the data pad containing his registration information. The Galactic Athletic Federation maintained strict policies about interspecies competition. Any sentient being could attempt to qualify for galactic records, but few non-apex predator species ever succeeded. Humans had never held a single galactic athletic record in any category. The shuttle shuddered slightly as magnetic clamps engaged with the docking bay. Through the speakers, the pilot's voice announced their arrival. "GAF Station Omega, Docking Bay 7. All passengers prepare for disembarkation. May your performances bring honor to your species." Marcus gathered his small travel bag, containing little more than a change of clothes and his Earth identification documents. Around him, athletes from dozens of species collected elaborate equipment cases and nutrition supplements designed for their specific physiologies. The air filled with a dozen different languages as beings discussed their training regimens and expected performance levels. As they filed toward the exit, Marcus found himself walking behind a group of thermal warriors from the Sirius system. Their bodies generated such intense heat that the shuttle's environmental controls worked overtime to maintain safe temperatures. One turned to examine Marcus with eyes like miniature stars. "Human," the thermal warrior said, his voice crackling like a campfire. "Your species registers for athletic trials? This seems unwise. Your flesh cannot withstand the forces involved in galactic-level competition." "We have to try," Marcus replied quietly. "Everyone deserves a chance to see what they're capable of." The thermal warrior's expression shifted to something resembling pity. "Noble sentiment. But nobility does not strengthen bones or increase muscle density. You will be broken within minutes of beginning any serious trial. Consider withdrawing before you suffer permanent injury." The docking bay doors hissed open, revealing the GAF station's interior. The main corridor stretched for nearly a kilometer, its walls lined with holographic displays showing current galactic records. Marcus walked slowly, reading each category with growing amazement. The Vorkians held most strength records. Thermal warriors dominated endurance events. The crystalline Arcturus beings excelled at precision sports requiring perfect geometric calculations. Every record holder represented a species evolved for specific physical advantages. The Zenthri's 4 arms gave them unmatched coordination. The Void Runners from the Outer Rim possessed bones dense enough to survive planetary impacts. Each species had found their niche in galactic athletics through millions of years of evolutionary pressure. Humans appeared nowhere on the record boards. Marcus stopped at a junction where multiple corridors branched toward different testing facilities. A massive holographic display showed the station's layout, with various wings dedicated to specific types of trials. Strength testing occupied the largest section, followed by endurance chambers and coordination trials. At the far end of the station, almost as an afterthought, sat a small section labeled experimental and miscellaneous events. Lost already? The voice belonged to a Zenthari female whose scales had settled into a warm golden color. She wore the distinctive uniform of GAF officials, complete with rank insignia indicating senior administrator status. I'm Administrator Vixai. You must be the human who registered for trials yesterday. Marcus Chun, he said, extending his hand in the traditional human greeting. Vexai examined the gesture with curiosity before carefully shaking with one of her four hands. Your registration paperwork was interesting, she continued, consulting a datapad. You've chosen to attempt the neural processing speed trial. That's not a common selection, especially for first-time participants. Most athletes begin with basic physical trials to establish baseline capabilities. Marcus nodded. I researched the available events extensively. Neural processing speed seemed like the best fit for human physiology. Vexai's scales shifted toward a concerned blue. You understand that this trial measures the time between stimulus recognition and motor response? The current record holder is a quantum moth from the Andromeda sector. Their nervous system processes information at the quantum level. They achieved a response time of 0.0847 seconds. I've seen the records, Marcus said. I'd like to attempt it anyway. Human nervous systems operate on biochemical signals. Vexai explained patiently. Your species' neural pathways are fundamentally slower than quantum-based or photonic nervous systems. The best theoretical human performance would be roughly 10 times slower than the current record. Other athletes had gathered around their conversation, drawn by curiosity about the young human's chosen event. Marcus could hear whispered comments in multiple languages, most expressing amusement or pity. The Vorkians from his shuttle stood nearby, their massive forms creating shadows across the corridor. The human thinks he can compete in neural processing, one Vorkian said to his companions. Perhaps his brain damage prevents him from understanding the impossibility. A thermal warrior laughed, the sound like crackling flames. Even if his nervous system operated at light speed, his muscle fibers would be too slow to respond. He'll trigger the stimulus and stand there helplessly while his body fails to react. Administrator Vexai held up one hand for silence. The Galactic Athletic Federation maintains open trials for all sentient species. If Marcus Chan wishes to attempt the neural processing speed trial, that is his right. However, she turned back to Marcus. I must inform you that failure times exceeding 5 seconds result in automatic disqualification from all future GAF events. Are you certain you wish to proceed? Marcus looked around at the assembled athletes. Representatives from dozens of species watched him with expressions ranging from mild interest to open mockery. Their confidence was absolute. They had evolved on worlds where split-second reactions meant survival. Their nervous systems had been shaped by millions of years of predation, competition, and environmental pressure. Humans came from a world where cooperation and tool use had replaced the need for superhuman reflexes. Their planet was relatively safe, their evolution driven by intelligence rather than physical prowess. By every logical measure, Marcus had no chance of success. I'm certain, he said. Administrator Vexai's scales shifted through several colors before settling on resigned purple. Very well. The neural processing speed trial is scheduled for tomorrow at 0800 station time. You'll need to complete medical clearance and equipment fitting today. Fair warning, the trial generates significant media attention. Representatives from major galactic news networks will be present. Media attention? Marcus asked. The neural processing speed record hasn't been challenged in over 3 standard years, Vexai explained. Any attempt draws viewers from across the galaxy. Your unique circumstances will likely generate additional interest. The crowd around them had grown larger. Athletes continued their conversations about the humans' foolish attempt, but Marcus noticed subtle changes in their tone. Some seemed genuinely curious about human capabilities. Others appeared concerned that he might embarrass himself publicly. A new voice cut through the discussions. Perhaps we should give the human credit for courage, if not wisdom. The speaker was unlike any being Marcus had seen before. Roughly humanoid in shape, but composed of what appeared to be living crystal. She stood 7 feet tall, with faceted surfaces that caught and reflected light in complex patterns. Her movements created tiny musical chimes as crystal structures rubbed against each other. Crystalline Sage Yintar, Administrator Vexhai, said respectfully, "I didn't realize you were observing today's registrations." "I was reviewing precision trial preparations," Yintar replied, her voice like distant wind chimes. "But this human's registration intrigued me. Neural processing speed requires more than quick reflexes. It demands perfect integration of perception, decision-making, and motor control. Some of our greatest mathematical minds have struggled with similar challenges." She turned toward Marcus, her crystalline features impossible to read. "Tell me, young human, what makes you believe your species possesses advantages in neural processing?" Marcus felt the weight of dozens of eyes upon him. The corridor had grown quiet except for the distant hum of the station's life support systems. His answer would either convince these beings that humans deserved respect or confirm their assumptions about human inferiority. "Humans excel at pattern recognition and adaptive thinking," he said carefully. "Our brains process multiple information streams simultaneously and make rapid adjustments based on changing conditions. We call it intuition, but it's really advanced neural processing happening below conscious awareness." Yintar's crystal structure shifted slightly, creating new harmonics in her chiming voice. "Interesting theory. However, the neural processing speed trial measures simple stimulus response time, not complex pattern analysis. The test presents a visual signal, and participants must respond with the correct motor action. There are no patterns to recognize, no adaptive thinking required." "That's exactly why it might work," Marcus replied. "Human nervous systems are optimized for processing incomplete information and making rapid decisions with limited data. We don't need to analyze every detail of a stimulus to respond appropriately." The thermal warrior who had spoken earlier stepped forward, his body temperature causing visible heat distortions in the air around him. "Human arrogance is astounding. You think your primitive nervous system can outperform quantum-level processing? Your species cannot even survive in most galactic environments without artificial life support. Survival isn't always about raw capability," Marcus said. "Sometimes it's about finding creative solutions to impossible problems." Administrator Vexhai consulted her data pad again. "Your medical clearance appointment is scheduled in 20 minutes, Corridor 7G. I suggest you prepare mentally for tomorrow's trial. The neural processing speed test chamber generates significant stress on participants' nervous systems." As the crowd began to disperse, athletes returning to their training regimens and preparation routines, Marcus stood alone in the massive corridor. Holographic displays continued cycling through galactic records, each one representing the pinnacle of evolutionary achievement for different species. The gap between human capabilities and galactic standards seemed impossibly vast. But somewhere in the back of his mind, Marcus remembered countless hours spent training in ways that no galactic database would recognize. Human teenagers had always found creative approaches to impossible challenges. They had learned to process information streams that would overwhelm most adult minds. They had developed reflexes adapted not to survival, but to competition in virtual environments where milliseconds determined victory or defeat. Tomorrow would prove whether human adaptability could bridge the gap between biology and achievement. The galaxy was about to discover what 17 years of gaming, pattern recognition, and split-second decision-making had created in one determined teenager. The medical examination facility buzzed with activity as various species underwent their mandatory health screenings. Marcus sat on an adjustable examination table that had automatically configured itself for human physiology, though it still felt awkwardly proportioned. Around him, beings of every conceivable shape and size submitted to scans from sophisticated medical equipment that hummed and clicked with alien efficiency. Dr. Kethmore, a Zenthri medical specialist, waved a scanning device over Marcus's nervous system while consulting readouts on multiple displays. His four arms moved with practiced coordination, each performing different aspects of the examination simultaneously. The scanner emitted a soft blue light that traced patterns along Marcus's spine and major nerve pathways. Fascinating, Dr. Kethmore murmured, his scales shifting to an interested yellow color. Human neural architecture is remarkably compact. Your brain-to-body mass ratio is significantly higher than most species your size. Is that good or bad for tomorrow's trial? Marcus asked. Difficult to determine, the doctor replied, comparing Marcus's scans to reference charts. Smaller nervous systems typically mean faster signal transmission. However, your biochemical synapses operate much slower than quantum or photonic neural networks. The density might compensate partially, but not enough to compete at galactic levels. Through the facility's transparent walls, Marcus could see other athletes undergoing their examinations. The quantum moth that held the current neural processing speed record floated in a specialized chamber filled with electromagnetic fields. Its translucent wings shimmered with patterns that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Even at rest, the creature's movements appeared to blur between positions. That being processes information at quantum speeds, Dr. Kethmore explained, following Marcus's gaze. Its nervous system exists partially outside normal space-time, allowing for instantaneous communication between neural clusters. Your biochemical signals travel at roughly 120 meters per second. The quantum moth's thoughts move at near light speed. Marcus watched the ethereal creature for several minutes, studying its movements and reactions to medical stimuli. Each response was immediate and precise, with no visible delay between stimulus and reaction. The being seemed to anticipate medical procedures before they began, its quantum awareness processing multiple probability streams simultaneously. Dr. Kethmore, Marcus said slowly, what exactly does the neural processing speed trial measure? The Zenthri physician pulled up a holographic display showing the test chamber's design. Participants are presented with random visual stimuli projected onto multiple screens around them. Each stimulus requires a specific motor response: hand gesture, foot position, or full body movement. The timer measures elapsed time between stimulus appearance and correct response initiation. How many possible stimuli are there? Approximately 10,000 different combinations, Dr. Kethmore replied. The trial's difficulty lies not just in reaction speed, but in processing complex visual information quickly enough to select the appropriate response. Many participants fail because they hesitate while analyzing the stimulus. Marcus studied the holographic display more carefully. The test chamber resembled a sphere lined with projection screens, with the participant standing on a pressure-sensitive platform in the center. Sensors tracked every movement with precision, measuring devices accurate to microseconds. Has anyone ever attempted to memorize all possible stimulus response combinations? Marcus asked. Dr. Kethmore's scales shifted to amused green. Impossible for most species. 10,000 complex visual patterns would overwhelm typical memory systems. Even the crystalline sages, with their perfect geometric recall, require significant time to process such large datasets. The medical examination continued with tests of Marcus's reflexes, coordination, and neural conductivity. Each measurement confirmed what everyone already knew. Humans operated at the bottom end of galactic capability scales. His fastest reflex responses measured 180 milliseconds, roughly 10 times slower than the current record holder. I must ask, Dr. Kethmore said as he completed the final scans, What inspired you to attempt this particular trial? Humans typically excel in areas requiring creativity and problem-solving. Athletic competition seems misaligned with your species' strengths. Marcus thought about his childhood, spent mastering video games that demanded split-second reactions to complex visual cues. Games where pattern recognition meant survival, where success depended on processing multiple information streams simultaneously while making rapid tactical decisions. Human teenagers had developed neural pathways optimized for exactly these challenges. Sometimes the best approach isn't obvious, Marcus said. Humans are good at finding unconventional solutions. After medical clearance, Marcus made his way to the equipment fitting center. The neural processing speed trial required participants to wear specialized sensors that monitored neural activity and muscle response initiation. A technician, another Zenthri with engineering modifications visible in his extra mechanical arms, helped Marcus into the monitoring suit. This equipment measures electrical activity in your nervous system, the technician explained as he adjusted sensor placements. The moment your brain recognizes a stimulus, we detect the neural firing. The timer stops when muscles begin contracting for your response. Any delay between recognition and action counts against your final time. The monitoring suit felt lightweight, but covered Marcus's entire body with a mesh of microscopic sensors. Each one connected wirelessly to the trial chamber's computer systems, creating a complete map of his neural and muscular activity in real time. Most participants require several practice runs to become comfortable with the equipment, the technician continued. Would you like to schedule training time in one of our simulation chambers? How many practice runs do participants typically need? Varies by species. Quantum moths need none, obviously. Thermal warriors usually require 3 or 4 sessions to adapt their high-energy nervous systems to the sensors. Most others need 5 to 10 practice runs to achieve optimal performance. Marcus considered the offer. Standard preparation would help him understand the trial format better, but it would also establish expectations about human capabilities. Every practice run would be recorded and analyzed, providing data about his limitations to anyone who might be watching. I'll skip the practice sessions, Marcus decided. The technician's mechanical arms paused in their adjustments. Are you certain? The trial environment can be disorienting for first-time participants. The rapid stimulus changes and multi-directional projections create significant sensory stress. I'm sure. Word about the humans' unusual preparation choices had apparently spread throughout the station. As Marcus left the equipment center, he noticed groups of athletes and officials engaged in animated discussions. Their conversations stopped when he passed, replaced by curious stares and whispered comments in various alien languages. Near the main corridor junction, Administrator Vexhai stood with several other GAF officials, their scales displaying colors Marcus was beginning to recognize as concern and confusion. They approached him as he walked toward the visitor quarters. Marcus, Administrator Vexhai said, "We've received several requests from galactic media outlets wanting to interview you before tomorrow's trial. This level of attention is unusual for neural processing speed attempts." What kind of attention? 3 major networks want exclusive coverage. The Galactic Sports Analysis Channel is planning a full documentary about human athletic potential. Even the Quantum Collective's research division has expressed interest in studying your neural patterns during the trial. Marcus felt a wave of pressure settle on his shoulders. What had begun as a personal challenge was becoming a public examination of human capabilities. The entire galaxy would witness his attempt, and by extension, judge his entire species based on his performance. There's more, Administrator Vexhai continued. Several record holders have requested permission to observe the trial in person. It's highly unusual, but not prohibited by GAF regulations. Who wants to watch? The quantum moth that holds the current record, obviously. 3 thermal warriors who hold related speed records. Crystalline Sage Yintar, who's never shown interest in physical trials before. And she consulted her data pad, Supreme Commander Vorthak of the Vorkian Dominion. Marcus recognized that last name. Supreme Commander Vorthak was legendary even on Earth, known throughout the galaxy as the greatest military strategist in Vorkian history. His tactical brilliance had ended conflicts across multiple sectors through sheer, overwhelming competence. The idea of such a being watching his trial attempt felt surreal. Why would Supreme Commander Vorthak want to observe a neural processing speed trial? Unknown, Administrator Vexhai replied. His request came through official Dominion channels with no explanation. The GAF approved it immediately due to his status. As they reached the visitor quarters, Marcus realized that tomorrow's trial had evolved far beyond a simple athletic attempt. Representatives from the galaxy's most advanced species would be evaluating human potential based on his performance. Success would open new possibilities for human participation in galactic society. Failure would confirm every assumption about human limitations. His assigned quarters were simple but comfortable, with basic amenities adjusted for human physiology. A food synthesizer had been programmed with Earth-standard nutrition profiles, though the taste remained distinctly artificial. Through the room's viewport, he could see the planet below, its surface dotted with massive training complexes where galactic athletes pushed their species' capabilities to new extremes. Marcus spent the evening reviewing everything he could access about neural processing speed trials. The GAF database contained detailed analysis of every recorded attempt, including slow-motion breakdowns of successful responses and failure pattern studies. The data painted a clear picture. Success required not just quick reflexes, but perfect integration of visual processing, pattern recognition, and motor control. The current record holder, Quantum Moth Zeftar, had achieved their time through quantum superposition awareness. Their nervous system could process multiple possible stimuli simultaneously, effectively knowing the correct response before the stimulus fully manifested. Other high performers used different approaches: photonic neural networks, crystalline computational matrices, or thermal energy pattern processing. Every successful strategy depended on capabilities that human biology simply didn't possess. But as Marcus studied the trial footage, he began noticing patterns that the analysts had missed. The stimuli weren't truly random. They followed subtle sequences based on geometric principles and color theory relationships. The trial's designers had built in mathematical relationships to ensure fair distribution of difficulty levels. Humans were exceptional at recognizing patterns, even when those patterns existed at subconscious levels. Marcus had spent countless hours training his mind to process visual information faster than his conscious thoughts could analyze it. Video games had taught him to respond to threat indicators before his logical mind identified what he was seeing. The question was whether human pattern recognition could compensate for biochemical nervous system limitations. Outside his viewport, the station's night cycle dimmed the corridor lights to simulate planetary day/night rhythms for visiting species. Marcus knew that across the facility, other athletes were engaging in their final preparation routines. Some would be meditation or energy-focusing exercises. Others would be consuming specialized nutrients designed to optimize their nervous system performance. Marcus did what human teenagers had always done the night before an important challenge. He got a good night's sleep and trusted in the skills he'd spent 17 years developing. Tomorrow would determine whether human adaptability could overcome billions of years of evolutionary disadvantage. The trial chamber hummed with barely contained energy as technicians completed their final system checks. Marcus stood outside the massive spherical structure, watching diagnostic lights cycle through their startup sequences. The chamber itself was impressive. A perfect sphere, 20 meters in diameter, its inner surface lined with thousands of projection screens capable of displaying complex visual stimuli in any configuration. Around him, the observation deck filled with beings he had only heard about in galactic news reports. Supreme Commander Vorthak stood near the main viewing windows, his massive Vorkian frame making even other large species appear small by comparison. His presence commanded immediate attention from everyone in the area. The legendary military leader's armor bore the scars of countless campaigns, and his eyes held the calculating intelligence that had reshaped galactic warfare. Quantum Moth Zeftar floated in a specialized containment field that maintained the electromagnetic conditions necessary for their quantum-based existence. Their translucent wings continued shifting between dimensional states, creating optical effects that hurt to observe directly. Even at rest, the current record holder moved with impossible grace, their form blurring at the edges where quantum uncertainty took hold. Crystalline Sage Yuntar stood perfectly motionless, her faceted surface reflecting light in complex patterns that seemed to contain mathematical relationships. Occasionally her form would chime softly as internal crystal structures adjusted, creating harmonics that suggested deep contemplation. Nervous, Administrator Vexhai approached Marcus, her scales displaying colors he was beginning to recognize as supportive concern. It's natural to feel pressure with this level of observation. Marcus looked around at the assembled beings. Representatives from major galactic powers, record-holding athletes, and scientific researchers from advanced civilizations. Holographic cameras captured every angle for broadcast across the galaxy. The pressure should have been overwhelming. Actually, I feel pretty calm, Marcus said, surprising himself with the truth of it. I've been preparing for this kind of challenge my whole life. Dr. Kethmore joined them, carrying a data pad displaying Marcus's final medical readings. All systems show normal human baseline parameters. Heart rate slightly elevated, but within acceptable ranges for athletic competition. Neural activity patterns are interesting. Interesting how? Your brain shows unusual activity in pattern recognition centers, the doctor explained. Most participants display elevated stress responses before trials. Your nervous system appears to be entering a focus state we typically see in experienced galactic athletes. The trial chamber's main display activated, showing the testing protocol to all observers. A synthetic voice began explaining the procedure in multiple galactic languages. Neural processing speed trial 7 to 439. Participant: Marcus Chun, human, Earth Soul, 3. Current galactic record: 0.0847 seconds, held by Quantum Moth Zeftar. Trial consists of 100 randomized stimuli requiring appropriate motor responses. Marcus entered the chamber through an airlock designed to maintain perfect environmental conditions. Inside, the spherical surface surrounded him with thousands of inactive display screens. The floor beneath his feet contained pressure sensors accurate to microscopic measurements. Monitoring equipment tracked every aspect of his nervous system activity through the sensor suit fitted the previous day. Participant preparation complete, the chamber's computer announced. Beginning calibration sequence. The screens around Marcus flickered to life, displaying simple geometric shapes in primary colors. Each shape required a specific response. Red circle meant raising his right hand, blue triangle meant stepping forward, green square meant crouching. The calibration helped establish baseline measurements for his reaction times and motor control. Through the observation windows, Marcus could see the assembled beings watching with intense focus. Supreme Commander Vorthak leaned forward slightly, his expression unreadable. Quantum Moth Zeftar's wings shifted through several dimensional configurations, suggesting deep interest in the proceedings. Calibration complete, the computer announced. Participant baseline established. Average response time 187 milliseconds. Beginning trial sequence in 10 seconds. Marcus took a deep breath and settled into the mental state he had developed through countless hours of competitive gaming. His consciousness shifted into what he thought of as flow state, a condition where conscious thought stepped aside and trained instincts took control. In this state, his hands and body moved before his logical mind could analyze what was happening. Trial sequence initiated. The first stimulus appeared instantly, a complex pattern combining multiple colors and shapes across 12 different screens. Marcus's body moved before his conscious mind processed what he was seeing. His right hand rose while his left foot stepped sideways, executing the required response pattern. Response time, 0.156 seconds. The number sent a wave of amazement through the observation deck. 0.156 seconds was faster than Marcus's calibrated baseline, faster than any human response time in GAF records. But it was still nearly twice as slow as the current record. The second stimulus flashed across the screens, an intricate geometric pattern that would have required significant analysis time for most beings. Marcus responded immediately, his body executing a complex sequence of movements without hesitation. Response time, 0.149 seconds. The pattern continued as stimuli appeared in rapid succession. Marcus's response times remained consistently in the 0.14 to 0.16 second range, significantly better than human baseline, but still far from record levels. The observers watched with growing interest as his performance remained stable rather than degrading under pressure. Through the observation windows, Supreme Commander Vorthak turned to Administrator Vexhai. This human's responses follow no recognizable pattern. He's not analyzing the stimuli logically. Human nervous systems operate differently than most species, Vexhai replied. They excel at pattern recognition and intuitive processing. Intuitive processing, Vorthak repeated thoughtfully. An interesting concept for combat applications. The trial continued with increasingly complex stimuli. Some patterns required full-body movement sequences. Others demanded precise finger positioning while maintaining specific foot placements. Each challenge pushed the limits of coordination and processing speed. Marcus found himself settling deeper into flow state as the trial progressed. His conscious mind observed his body's responses with detached amazement. Somehow, his hands and feet knew where to move before the patterns fully registered in his visual cortex. The countless hours spent training split-second reactions to visual cues were paying dividends he had never expected. Response time, 0.142 seconds. Response time, 0.138 seconds. Response time, 0.145 seconds. The times weren't improving dramatically, but they weren't degrading either. Most participants showed declining performance as the trial progressed, and mental fatigue set in. Marcus's responses remained consistently fast and accurate. Crystalline Sage Yuntar moved closer to the observation windows, her crystal structure chiming with increased frequency. Fascinating, she said to no one in particular. The human's neural processing isn't following quantum or photonic principles. He's using some form of parallel pattern analysis. Dr. Kethmore consulted his monitoring equipment. His brain activity shows unusual patterns. Multiple neural centers are processing visual information simultaneously, but not through conscious analysis pathways. It's almost as if his subconscious mind is handling pattern recognition while his motor centers respond directly. Quantumoth Zeftar's wings shifted through several dimensional states as they observed Marcus's continued performance. Their quantum awareness could perceive probability streams, and something about the human's approach was creating unexpected patterns in the trial's quantum matrix. The 50th stimulus appeared, the most complex pattern yet, requiring Marcus to coordinate hand, foot, and head movements in a precise sequence while maintaining balance on one leg. Without pause, his body flowed through the required motions. Response time, 0.134 seconds. A ripple of surprise passed through the observation deck. 0.134 seconds was approaching the threshold where performance would be considered respectable by galactic standards. Not record-breaking, but no longer embarrassingly slow. Supreme Commander Vorthak stepped closer to the viewing windows. Administrator Vexhai, has any human ever achieved response times below 0.150 seconds in GAF trials? Never, Vexhai replied, checking her historical records. The fastest recorded human response time was 0.163 seconds, achieved by a professional athlete who trained specifically for reflex trials. Yet this adolescent is consistently performing 20 milliseconds faster, Vorthak observed. Without any apparent strain or degradation. The trial passed the 75th stimulus mark. Marcus's performance had stabilized in the 0.130 to 0.140 second range, far exceeding any human baseline, but still distant from the 0.0847 second record. The observers had begun discussing the implications of his unexpected capabilities when something changed. The 78th stimulus triggered a different response in Marcus's nervous system. As the complex pattern flashed across multiple screens, his body moved with fluid precision that seemed to anticipate the visual cue. For a moment, it appeared as though he had responded before the stimulus fully manifested. Response time, 0.096 seconds. The observation deck fell silent. 0.096 seconds was approaching record territory, faster than most galactic species could achieve even with their evolutionary advantages. The 79th stimulus appeared, and Marcus's response was instantaneous. Response time, 0.089 seconds. Quantum Moth Zeftar's wings stopped shifting between dimensions as their quantum awareness focused entirely on the trial chamber. Something unprecedented was happening to the human's neural processing capabilities. The 80th stimulus flashed across the screens. Response time, 0.087 seconds. The current record was 0.0847 seconds. Marcus was within 3 milliseconds of galactic history. Supreme Commander Vorthak moved to the communication panel connecting the observation deck to the trial chamber. Human Marcus Chen. His voice rumbled through the chamber speakers. Are you aware of your performance metrics? Marcus, still deep in flow state, responded without breaking his focus concentration. I can feel myself getting faster. It's like the patterns are becoming clearer. The 81st stimulus appeared, a pattern more complex than any previous trial in GAF history. Marcus's body moved. Response time, 0.078 seconds. The observation deck erupted in amazement. Marcus Chun, a 17-year-old human from species with no galactic athletic records, had just broken the neural processing speed record by nearly 7 milliseconds. But the trial wasn't over. 19 stimuli remained, and Marcus was continuing to accelerate. The trial chamber's atmosphere had become electric with possibility as Marcus continued through the remaining stimuli. Each response came faster than the last, his movements flowing with an efficiency that defied conventional understanding of biological nervous systems. The assembled observers watched in stunned silence as human evolution revealed capabilities that their advanced sciences hadn't predicted. Response time, 0.074 seconds. Response time, 0.071 seconds. Response time, 0.069 seconds. Dr. Kethmore stared at his monitoring equipment in disbelief. This is impossible. Human biochemical synapses cannot transmit signals faster than their molecular structure allows. Yet his neural activity readings show signal propagation speeds that should be physically impossible for a species. Crystalline sage Yun Tar's entire form had begun resonating with harmonic frequencies that created complex mathematical patterns in the air around her. The human isn't overcoming his biological limitations, she said, her voice carrying new harmonics of amazement. He's transcending them through process optimization. Explain, Supreme Commander Vorthak demanded, his tactical mind seeking to understand this unexpected development. Watch his movement patterns, Yin-Tar instructed. He's not processing each stimulus individually. His nervous system has learned to recognize pattern families and predict subsequent stimuli based on the trial's mathematical foundation. He's essentially solving the test rather than reacting to it. Quantum Moth Zeftar's dimensional awareness had been focused entirely on Marcus throughout the record-breaking sequence. Their quantum perception could observe probability streams and temporal fluctuations, revealing aspects of the trial that purely physical beings couldn't detect. There's more. Zeftar communicated through bioelectromagnetic fields that the chamber's computers translated into galactic standard. The human's consciousness has entered a state where linear time perception becomes irrelevant. He's not predicting future stimuli through logic. He's experiencing them through quantum probability awareness. Administrator Vexhai checked the trial's computer systems, convinced that equipment malfunction must explain the impossible readings. All systems show normal operation. The timer's quantum accuracy is confirmed. These response times are genuine. Response time, 0.063 seconds. Marcus had broken his own record again. In the observation deck, representatives from major galactic civilizations exchanged rapid communications with their homeworld governments. The implications of human neural capabilities would reshape understanding of Terran potential across the galaxy. Supreme Commander Vorthak activated a private communication channel to the Vorkian High Command. Immediate priority transmission. Human neural processing capabilities exceed all prior assessments. Recommend immediate revision of Terran military potential classifications. Through the trial chamber speakers, the computer provided continuous updates. Stimulus 85. Response time, 0.061 seconds. New galactic record established. But Marcus wasn't slowing down. If anything, his responses were becoming more fluid and precise with each challenge. The final 15 stimuli represented the trial's most complex patterns, designed to push even quantum-level nervous systems to their limits. The 86 stimulus appeared across multiple screens simultaneously, a pattern so intricate that most species required several seconds just to visually process its components. Marcus's response was immediate and flawless. Response time, 0.057 seconds. Dr. Keth Moore had given up trying to explain the readings through conventional physiology. His brain activity patterns show synchronized firing across multiple neural regions that typically operate independently. It's as if his entire nervous system has become a single integrated processing unit. That may be closer to the truth than you realize, crystalline sage Yintar observed. Human neural architecture includes significant redundancy and cross-connection density. Under extreme optimization, those connections might allow for processing methods that our more specialized nervous systems cannot achieve. The remaining stimuli challenged every aspect of neural processing speed and coordination. Pattern recognition, spatial reasoning, temporal sequencing, and motor control integration all reached levels that should have overwhelmed any biological system. Marcus flowed through each response with increasing precision. Response time, 0.054 seconds. Response time, 0.051 seconds. Response time, 0.049 seconds. The final 5 stimuli represented the absolute pinnacle of neural processing challenges. Each pattern incorporated elements from quantum mathematics, crystalline geometric relationships, and thermal energy dynamics. The trial's designers had intended these patterns to be nearly impossible for any single species to master. Stimulus 96 flashed across the chamber screens. Response time, 0.046 seconds. Quantum Moth Zeftar's probability awareness detected something remarkable approaching. The quantum matrix surrounding the trial had begun resonating with harmonics that suggested approaching temporal convergence. The human was about to achieve something that would transcend conventional understanding of neural processing. Stimulus 97 appeared, a pattern that existed partially in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Response time, 0.043 seconds. Supreme Commander Vorthak leaned forward as his combat-trained mind recognized the strategic implications of what he was witnessing. Administrator Vexhai, what is the theoretical limit for neural processing speed in carbon-based life forms? According to our best scientific models, approximately 0.040 seconds, Vexhai replied. That represents the absolute maximum speed at which biochemical signals can propagate through organic nervous systems. The human is approaching that theoretical limit. Stimulus 98 materialized across the chamber's display systems, a pattern of such complexity that it challenged the quantum processing capabilities of the trial's computer systems. Marcus's response transcended physical movement. His body seemed to flow through the required motions with perfect efficiency, every muscle fiber firing in synchronized harmony. Response time, 0.040 seconds. The observation deck had become completely silent. Marcus Chun had achieved the theoretical maximum neural processing speed for biological life forms. By every scientific measure, further improvement should be impossible. Stimulus 99 appeared. The pattern was unlike anything in the trial's database. The computer had generated a completely novel stimulus that incorporated elements from every previous pattern while adding new levels of complexity. It was designed to be the ultimate test of neural processing capabilities. Marcus moved. Time seemed to slow as his body executed the required response with movements so precise they appeared choreographed. Every gesture flowed seamlessly into the next, creating a display of coordination that resembled art more than athletic competition. Response time, 0.037 seconds. The impossible had become reality. Marcus had exceeded the theoretical limits of biological neural processing through methods that galactic science couldn't explain. Stimulus 100, the final challenge, materialized across every screen in the chamber simultaneously. The pattern combined quantum mathematics, crystalline geometry, thermodynamics, and photonic relationships in a display so complex that most beings couldn't process its full structure even with unlimited time. Marcus didn't hesitate. His response was instantaneous, perfect, and beautiful. Every movement connected seamlessly with every other movement, creating a symphony of precision that demonstrated the absolute pinnacle of neural processing integration. The timer stopped. Response time, 0.034 seconds. Silence filled the observation deck as the magnitude of Marcus's achievement settled over the assembled beings. He had not merely broken the galactic record. He had shattered it by more than 50 milliseconds. His final response time was nearly 3 times faster than the previous record holder. The trial chamber's systems completed their final analyses and announced the results. Neural processing speed trial 7 to 439 complete. Participant Marcus Chun has achieved an average response time of 0.068 seconds across 100 stimuli, with a fastest single response of 0.034 seconds. Both measurements establish new galactic records. Through the chamber speakers, the computer added, "Note, final response time of 0.034 seconds approaches the theoretical limits of quantum measurement precision. Additional verification protocols recommended." Marcus stood in the center of the chamber, his breathing slightly elevated but otherwise appearing unaffected by his record-breaking performance. The flow state that had carried him through the trial was beginning to fade, replaced by growing awareness of what he had just accomplished. Supreme Commander Vorthak was the first to break the silence. "Administrator Vexhai, I request immediate private consultation regarding the implications of this trial." Crystalline Sage Yin Tar's harmonic resonance had shifted to frequencies expressing profound contemplation. The mathematical relationships demonstrated by this human's performance suggest neural processing capabilities that exceed our current understanding of biological systems. Quantum Moth Zeftar's dimensional awareness focused entirely on Marcus, as their quantum perception detected lingering probability echoes from his performance. The temporal distortions generated by his final responses are still rippling through local space-time. His consciousness achieved states that approach quantum-level awareness. Dr. Kethmore was frantically reviewing his monitoring data, searching for explanations that his medical training could accept. His nervous system activity during the final 10 stimuli shows patterns we've never observed in any species. It's as if his brain temporarily reorganized itself for maximum processing efficiency. As technicians began shutting down the trial chamber systems, Marcus walked toward the exit airlock. Through the observation windows, he could see the assembled beings engaged in intense discussions about the implications of his performance. He had come to the GAF station expecting to fail. Human biology shouldn't have been capable of competing at galactic levels. Yet somehow, 17 years of human development had created neural processing capabilities that transcended the limitations of his species' evolutionary heritage. The airlocks cycled open, and Marcus stepped into the observation deck to face the representatives of galactic civilization. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were far more than anyone had imagined. Point for the observation deck buzzed with activity as Marcus emerged from the trial chamber. Representatives from dozens of galactic civilizations spoke in urgent whispers, their conversations carrying undertones of amazement, concern, and rapidly shifting political calculations. The 17-year-old human who had been dismissed as impossibly outmatched just hours earlier had fundamentally altered galactic understanding of Terran capabilities. Supreme Commander Vorthak approached first, his massive Vorkian frame moving with the controlled precision that had made him legendary across the galaxy. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of authority that had reshaped interstellar conflicts through pure competence. Marcus Chun, the Supreme Commander said, "Your performance has created implications that extend far beyond athletic records. The Vorkian Dominion has underestimated human potential. This error will not be repeated." Before Marcus could respond, Administrator Vexhai stepped forward with her datapad, displaying incoming communications from across the galaxy. Her scales had shifted to colors, indicating overwhelming information processing as messages flooded in from major civilizations. "Marcus, I'm receiving priority transmissions from the Centauri Federation, the Arcturus Collective, the Thermal Warrior clans, and 17 other major powers," she said. "They're all requesting immediate diplomatic contact with Earth's governing bodies. Your trial has been broadcast across every major galactic network." Dr. Keth Moore joined the growing circle around Marcus, his medical scanner still registering readings from the monitoring suit. "I need to understand what happened to your nervous system during those final responses. The data suggests neural processing methods that our science cannot explain." "It felt like everything became clear," Marcus said, struggling to put the experience into words. "The patterns weren't random anymore. I could see how they connected to each other, like they were all part of a larger design." Crystalline sage Yuntar moved closer, her harmonic frequencies creating gentle melodies that suggested deep contemplation. The human describes pattern recognition transcendence. His nervous system achieved integration levels that our mathematics suggest should be impossible for biological systems. Quantumoth Zeftar's electromagnetic field translated their thoughts into galactic standard language. The temporal distortions generated by his responses indicate consciousness operating partially outside normal space-time constraints. This human achieved quantum awareness without quantum neural architecture. The implications were staggering. Every galactic civilization had developed their advanced capabilities through millions of years of evolution under specific environmental pressures. Quantum moths had evolved in space environments where quantum effects dominated. Thermal warriors had developed on stellar surfaces where extreme energy processing was essential for survival. Crystalline beings had formed in mathematical environments where perfect geometric relationships determined existence. Humans had evolved on a relatively peaceful planet where cooperation and tool use had replaced the need for extreme physical capabilities. Yet somehow, Marcus had demonstrated neural processing that exceeded species specifically evolved for such challenges. "There's something else," Dr. Keth Moore said, consulting his monitoring data. "Marcus's brain activity patterns during peak performance show characteristics we typically associate with quantum consciousness, but generated through purely biochemical processes. His nervous system created quantum-like effects without quantum hardware." Supreme Commander Vorthak activated his communication implant, establishing direct contact with Vorkian High Command. Priority Override Alpha. Human neural capabilities exceed all projections by several orders of magnitude. Recommend immediate revision of all strategic assessments regarding Terran military potential. Through the station's announcement system, Administrator Vexhai's voice reached every section of the facility. "Attention all GAF personnel and visiting athletes. Today's neural processing speed trial has established new galactic records that require comprehensive analysis. All related research data is classified pending review by the Galactic Science Council. Marcus looked around at the assembled beings, slowly realizing that his personal challenge had become something much larger. What happens now? Now, Supreme Commander Vorthax said, the galaxy learns that humans represent capabilities we never imagined possible. Your species will no longer be dismissed as primitive or limited. Administrator Vexhai received another wave of incoming communications. The Galactic Council is requesting an emergency session to discuss human integration protocols. The Quantum Collective wants to establish joint research agreements with Earth. 3 different military alliances are proposing defensive pacts. And the media coverage is unprecedented, Dr. Kethmore added. Your trial is being analyzed by scientific institutions across the galaxy. Every major university wants to study human neural processing methods. The transformation was happening in real time. Marcus could see it in the way other athletes looked at him now. The mockery and pity had been replaced by respect and curiosity. Beings who had dismissed humans as irrelevant were now studying his every movement for insights into capabilities they couldn't understand. Crystalline sage Yuntar's harmonic frequencies shifted to patterns expressing new mathematical relationships. The human's achievement suggests that consciousness itself may be more flexible than our sciences assume. If biological systems can generate quantum-like effects through optimization alone, our understanding of neural architecture requires a fundamental revision. A new voice joined the conversation as a being Marcus hadn't noticed before approached the group. The newcomer appeared to be composed of living light, contained within a roughly humanoid energy field. When they spoke, their words seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. I am Research Coordinator Luxandris of the Photonic Collective, the being announced. We have observed this trial through quantum-entangled monitoring systems. The human's neural processing demonstrates capabilities that challenge our civilization's most advanced theories about consciousness and time perception. How so? Marcus asked. During your final 10 responses, your brain activity generated patterns that our instruments detected across multiple dimensional frameworks simultaneously, Luxandris explained. You weren't just processing visual stimuli quickly. You were temporarily expanding your consciousness beyond the normal constraints of linear time. Supreme Commander Vorthax stepped forward. Are you suggesting that humans possess natural dimensional awareness capabilities? Not exactly, Luxandris replied. But this human demonstrated that biological consciousness can achieve effects similar to our photonic neural networks through pure optimization and pattern recognition excellence. The implications are extraordinary. Administrator Vexhai consulted her data pad again as new information arrived. I'm receiving confirmation that Marcus's trial performance is being studied by research institutions across 17 different galactic sectors. The Andromedan Science Directorate is requesting permission to establish permanent research stations in the Sol system. What about Earth? Marcus asked. Does my home planet know what happened here? Earth's governments received notification 37 minutes ago, Vexhai replied. According to our diplomatic channels, they're mobilizing their best scientists and preparing for formal first contact protocols with dozens of galactic civilizations. Dr. Kethmore finished his analysis of the monitoring data and looked up with an expression of amazement. Marcus, your nervous system activity during peak performance shows integration patterns that our medical science says should be impossible. You somehow achieved perfect synchronization across neural networks that typically operate independently. But that's not the most remarkable part, Crystalline Sage Yuntar added. The mathematical patterns in your responses demonstrate that human consciousness can transcend its biological limitations through pure optimization. Your species may possess neural plasticity that exceeds our most advanced artificial intelligence systems. Quantumoth Zeftar's probability awareness had been focused on analyzing the broader implications of Marcus's achievement. The quantum effects generated by human consciousness operating at peak efficiency suggest possibilities we hadn't considered. If biological systems can create quantum-like effects through pattern recognition alone, the potential applications are limitless. Supreme Commander Vorthak received confirmation of new orders from Vorkian High Command through his neural implant. The Vorkian Dominion is immediately implementing new protocols for interaction with human populations. Your species will be reclassified from primitive emerging civilization to priority strategic partner. Similar directives are being issued across the galaxy. Administrator Vexhai confirmed. Every major power is revising their policies regarding Earth and human capabilities. Marcus stood surrounded by representatives of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, all of whom were now seeing humans through completely different perspectives. The challenge he had undertaken as a personal test had become a demonstration that reshapes interstellar relationships. "There's one more thing," Dr. Kethmore said quietly. "Marcus, you're 17 years old. Human neural development continues until approximately age 25. If your capabilities are still developing." The implication hung in the air like electricity. Marcus had achieved impossible performance levels as a teenager whose brain was still developing. The potential for human neural processing capabilities might extend far beyond what anyone could predict. Quantum Moth Zeftar expressed a thought that resonated across multiple dimensional frameworks. If this human represents typical development for a species, Earth may be home to the most neurally advanced civilization in the galaxy. Supreme Commander Vorthak activated his communication systems one final time. "Galactic Command, this is Vorthak. Human neural processing capabilities represent a paradigm shift in our understanding of consciousness and biological potential. Recommend immediate establishment of comprehensive cooperation agreements with Earth." The humans aren't just emerging as a galactic civilization. They're emerging as potentially the most capable neural processors in known space. As the assembled beings continued their discussions about the implications of his trial, Marcus realized that his 13-second journey from failure to galactic record holder had become something much more significant. He had proven that humans possess capabilities that the galaxy's most advanced sciences couldn't explain. The ridicule was over. The galaxy was ready to discover what else humans could accomplish when they stopped accepting limitations and started exploring possibilities. Earth's children were about to show the universe what human potential really meant.